night with a tail as big as a car. With a tail as big as a car. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? What I hear? Ringing through the sky, shepherd boy. Do you hear what I hear? Hear what I hear? A song, high above the tree, with a voice as big as the sea. With a voice as big as the sea. Said the shepherd boy to the mighty king, do you know what I know? What I know. In your palace, warm mighty king, do you know what I know? A child shivers in the cold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Said the king to the people everywhere, listen to what I say. Pray for peace, people everywhere. Listen to what I say. The child, sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and light.
Scott? You guys want to sing Angels We Have Heard on High?
Well, can we do that after the meeting? Yeah, let's do, we've got the intention for today, by the way, is the birth of Christ is the Christ consciousness inside. So everything about today is around that. And we're going to have a little special reading with Reverend Jenny, and then we'll go to the song.
Good morning. Merry Christmas. This is called A Christmas Parable by Mary Morrissey. It's a story about a man who discovered the real meaning of Christmas, what the real incarnation means about God becoming man to bring the light of the Christ into a dark, dark world. Once upon a time, there was a man who looked upon Christmas as a lot of humbug. He wasn't a Scrooge. He was a kind, decent person, generous to his family, upright in his community, and in all of his business dealings. But he didn't believe all that stuff about an incarnation, which churches always proclaim at Christmas. He was too honest to pretend that he did. I am sorry, he told his wife, who was a faithful churchgoer, but I simply cannot understand that claim that Christ became man. It simply does not make sense to me. And on Christmas Eve, his wife and his children dressed for church for the midnight service. I feel like a hypocrite, he explained. I would much rather stay at home, and I'll be here waiting for you. He watched his wife back down the long driveway, and shortly after they drove away and rounded the corner in their car, he looked out the window and watched as snow began to fall. He went to the window and watched the flurries drift down and get heavier and heavier. If we must have Christmas, he reflected, it's nice to have a white one. He went back to his chair by the fireside and began to read his newspaper. A few minutes later, he was startled by a thumping on the window. And then more thumping and more thumping. He thought, someone must be throwing snowballs at my window. He went to the front door to investigate, and he found a flock of birds huddled miserably in the snow. They had been caught up in the storm, and in a desperate search for shelter, they had tried to fly right through his window. I can't let these poor birds lie here and freeze, he thought, but he wondered, how can I help? Then he remembered the barn, where his children's pony had been stabled. That will provide a warm shelter, he thought. He quickly put on his coat and ran outside, and he trimmed through the deepening snow to the barn. He opened the doors wide and turned on the light, but the birds wouldn't come in. Food, food. I'm going to go inside and get some crackers, he thought. He hurried back to the house, got some breadcrumbs, and he sprinkled them on the snow to make a trail leading from the birds to the barn. But he was dismayed that the birds did not follow the trail. They totally ignored the breadcrumbs, and they continued to flop around helplessly in the snow. He tried shooing them into the barn by walking around them and waving his arms. The birds scattered in every direction, except to the lighted room. They must find me a strange and terrifying creature, he thought. But I can't think of any way to let them know that they can trust me. If only I could become a bird myself, he thought. For just a few minutes, perhaps I could lead them to safety. And just at that very moment, the church bells began to ring. He stood silently for a while, listening to the bells, pealing the glad tidings of Christmas. And he sank in his knees in the snow. Now I understand, he whispered, and then louder, now I understand. I get it. Now I see why you had to do it. So this was an opportunity for the man to see more clearly about the incarnation, to see God coming in the person of the way shower, Jesus the Christ, to bring the light to the dark world, that light might find its way into the nature of all of our hearts, so that we would be one with a Christ consciousness, not just at Christmas, but every day of our lives. And Merry Christmas.
Should we stand since this one needs a good long time?
If you need it. It's in the Brown Book 279, I believe. So, 279 para la gente que habla en español. Exactamente. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing over the plains and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strain. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What the gladsome tidings be, which inspire your heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Come to Bethlehem and see him whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee Christ the Lord, the newborn King. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Okay, time for our spiritual reading with Bill.
Good morning, Merry Christmas. This is a story about soldiers in World War II. It started with the miniature Christmas trees and songs from the trenches. Soon, soldiers who had faced each other across barbed wire in no man's land were exchanging gifts and playing soccer. When the rain stopped and the skies cleared, December 24th, 1914, soldiers put down their arms and made peace, if only briefly. Throughout history, wars have been temporary interruptions for religious observance or peace talks or to bury the dead. But none had ever occurred on the scale or with the duration with the potential for changing things as when the shooting suddenly stopped on the Christmas Eve, 1914. Writes Stanley Winthrop, Professor Emeritus of Arts and Humanity at Penn State University. His new book, Silent Night, The Story of the World War I Christmas Truce, documents the truce. It was unprecedented for both the scope and because of the way it came about. Away from the front, both sides were still largely unaffected by the war, which had begun just months earlier. Families sent gifts to soldiers at the front, and many German soldiers received Christmas trees. It was the Germans who started the truce, lighting candles and shouting across no man's land. You no shoot, we no shoot. Many of the British soldiers didn't believe it at first, but soon they joined the Germans in singing Silent Night and O Christmas Tree. On Christmas Day, the soldiers came out of the trenches to exchange gifts with the enemy, a practice that continued most places for 2 days. Troop organized soccer games in no man's land, and in some places along the front, the peace lasted until New Year's Day. There was no coordinated effort to establish the truce down the 300 miles of the front, but they wound up with a truce almost along the entire front. The Christmas truce is one of those stories that is so wonderful, said John Help, assistant professor of history at Wilkes University, to think that in the midst of all this destruction, all this death, that the people could get together and exchange presents, could get together and play soccer and impose on the day and a half of normalcy on war. Newspaper article. Don't remember the article, or don't remember the newspaper or when or where. Okay, just saying that's, I guess, a reference. I think I saw on TV an ad or a commercial with this. Did anybody see that? With that, you saw it? Okay, where the soldiers sitting there and starting to sing, and they come back out and come in the middle. And so it's a good occasion for us all to remember we're all men, and peace to all of us.
So me and Scott are going to try this song, so just sing it with us. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's in the caroling book. Where is caroling books? Are there more caroling books? It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle jingling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all, with those holiday greetings and gay happy meetings when friends come to call. It's the happiest season of all. There'll be parties for husbands and mellows for toasting and caroling out in the snow. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing with ribbons on dear. It's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be parties for hosts, marshmallows for toasting and caroling out in the snow. There'll be scary ghost stories and tell of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the king and everyone telling
With loved ones are near. It's the most wonderful time. It's the most wonderful time. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
something like that.
That's too funny.
We make it work however.
Keep going.
Okay, in this moment I give all glory to God. And I state to you, first of all, may the light and joy of this holy Christmas season uplift your heart with renewed awareness of God's love, and with faith in transforming the harmonizing power in your own life and all those that you touch in the world. Each of us can tangibly experience that inward sacred dimension of peace and love of this outwardly festive time by making a real effort to open our hearts to all the divine qualities of God that were exemplified by the beloved Jesus the Christ and the other great teachers, especially by meditating inside deeply to receive this universal love and light in your own consciousness. By uniting your devotion in that effort during this holy season, wherever we are in this world, there are people all around the world, we will receive the blessings of this Christmas in the fullest way. As Guruji said, the true celebration of Christmas is the realization in our own consciousness of the birth of the Christ consciousness. This Christmas can be a new beginning for you, beloveds, an awakening from the dream that somehow there's something wrong with you, that you are a frail human being, and the reality of your soul's innate divinity. Guruji also said, in every good thought is the secret home of the Christ. That's a beautiful statement. The universal Christ, God, Source, Spirit lives in us when we strive to reflect in our lives God's divine qualities. But to fully experience the reality of that infinite consciousness, we must enter the sacred temple of silent communion with God within, deep within our souls, where we can feel that transforming power of His love permeating our being. Each soul who begins to feel the divine presence within and to see God in all becomes a conscious part of the great light of the Christ consciousness. A light so bright within each and every one of you that has the power to bring even greater harmony and goodwill into this earth by drawing more and more souls into the tangible embrace of God's love. So we are all important to one another, to help this light grow within us and to shine as brightly as it can. So each year we have the opportunity to come here with one another and to remember that Christmas is about living this message of the Christ consciousness within, of love and joy. And the message that Jesus gave to us during His teachings when He spoke about the importance of the four gifts of Christmas: light, joy, love, and peace, as well as forgiveness. In that, we do not need to see everything outside of us because everything is within inside. The process is inside out. You want to change the world out here? Change inside. That's where the Christ consciousness is at. Not only in our mind, but in every cell of our body, which has control over our health, our relationships, everything. So, peace is not somewhere out there, which we sometimes think, oh, if they would just stop doing this, we would have peace. If the wars came to an end, we would have peace. Not necessarily true, because peace is inside. Love isn't out there, it's in here. Joy, light, it's all in here. All of you, all of us has all the qualities of God within us to create the lives that we want, to be one another. That's what Jesus taught us, to love no matter what. So what is this deeper message? Let me share a few ideas. As I said, it's not about doing anything out there. It's the opportunity to be able to feel inside, to get out of your mind, open your heart up, and feel the love of God that shines within each and every one of you. It's about knowing and believing. Not hopefully about maybe hoping that it might happen or faith, but knowing, because you are one with God. You know the truth, and you are being that. Whatever you want to be, choose to be it, and watch your life change. And to do that takes remembering that God lives, breathes, and acts through us every moment of the day. There is no thought, no place where God is not. This leads to the second point to share today, connecting to the presence and the resurrection of the Christ consciousness. This manifests in many ways. And for some people, they actually get connected to the celebration of the literal birth of the baby Jesus. But for others, especially us here, it's a reminder of the presence of the Christ consciousness within, the depth of energy that it offers to us for our life, seeking to connect to God more. These two statements bring up a question. Can you, and I've talked about ascension in the fifth dimension and what we're working in, but can you ascend through the energy of Christmas that's going on in the world to embrace the fullness of the Christ consciousness within? To not get caught up in gifts or shopping or this or that. It's a fun thing to do, but mainly we want to connect to the Christ consciousness inside. We want to connect to the birthing of your child of divine love and wisdom. It's called rebirth. That's what happens every time at this year. And it's the expansion of the understanding of what Christmas is about. So, consider as all the energies around the world for celebration of this day, however it is celebrated in different religions and a different faiths, they're all converging because we are all one. In this month-ending event where you are birthing yourself once again as a child of divine love, divine joy, divine light, and divine peace. That is who you are. That's what this day is about. You are birthing your Christ consciousness through the expansion of this December energy in your joy-filled energy of the ceremony of December the 25th. It's a day to really take inside and feel on a stronger level. The momentum of December, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that it's time for us to start looking at things around us with different eyes. What are we seeing in our lives outside, and what does it mean about us? That's what we get to do this month. We get to birth our refreshed Christ consciousness, to really be in the mind of God. Think about that each and every one of you live in the mind of God. It may look like God's somewhere out there, but to be in the mind of God, what does God think about? What does God see? What does God know? How does God love? Those are the things that we want to experience within. You may ask, what is before you now, and how do you harness the wisdom, as I said, with your eyes? To go beyond the single vision of the moment, just saying, oh, this is what it's about, but expand your vision of what Christmas, about what your life is about, beloved ones. Is there any wonder why the three wise men appeared in the story at that time, at the birth? Because maybe they're the trinity of perfection and unification within. They call forth the pyramid of divine love. The Christ story is indeed a story of the Spirit into form, coming down into this physical form. And yet the personalization of this story, and whatever personal inspiration you derive from it, is your own individual opportunity to connect with God the way that you do that. Each of us must find a safe harbor in our density world for this emerging light that's coming through us. We must each find our own way of opening up and emerging and allowing it to take over all of us. We look at the manger scene at Christmas time, and how does that relate to us? It could be your church, your community, could be a place in nature or some other location where you have to be conscious of your role for midwifing the light. Think about that. That's what that ceremony was about. Midwifing the light of God that came down in the form of Jesus. And it happens to us all the time. If you do so with consciousness and awareness, then you will attract your wise witnesses to you, like the three wise men. Which means, beloveds, that there will be others around you that will acknowledge this light, this emergence of light and love and peace and joy that's coming out of you. People will see it. They'll be attracted to you, just like the wise men and the shepherds and everybody was attracted to the light. The three In the role of the wise men, we want to honor what's arriving in our lives. To look at the strong structure of the pyramid, a wonderful foundation because it's balanced energy. The value of the season of light is to awaken recognition of the light that is in each of you and all beings. The one bright light. As Archangel Ezekiel reminds us, keep your eyes on the divine at all times and have fun doing so. We are in a new era, and the light is more available for recognition than ever before. We are collectively birthing. So this holiday season, I ask all of you to set your healthy spiritual boundaries. Separate yourself from what no longer serves you. Then we're going to get into that more into the new year. But we're birthing the child within us, and the new year we get to release all of that doesn't fit for us anymore and open up to the Christ consciousness. Cultivate your manger to receive the authentic blessing of the Christ energy. Beloveds, you know how important that is to keep that in mind, to keep every moment as much as you can to receive the authentic blessing of the Christ energy. And remember, there's lots of support for us here for that. A mystic once said, God never had but one son, and this son is begotten eternally in each one of us over and over again. Which means the passing of the universal spirit into the individual light, into the life and the incarnation of the divine, into the human, the manifestation of the absolute and the unconditioned in our own experience. So we get to feel it every moment in our own experience. So I want you to remember in closing that all of creation exists for the delight of the Creator. Think about that. You are here for the delight of the Creator. The Creator in you loves you, supports you, delights in you. Your Creator does not look at you and judge us like we do ourselves. We separate ourselves from God. We separate ourselves from our self-love, from everything that we can happen in our world. But still, God is within us, and God loves us. And we want to remember that. And remember that the passing of spirit of the absolute, of the Creator of the universe, comes into our physical body for that purpose. That's why we're here. That's why our soul brought us here. So, take this holiday season to really take it in deeper. That you are one with God. There is no separation. That everything of God is yours for the asking. And that's what this month is about. Rebirth the child. Open up to the Christ consciousness, to the love, the light, the joy, and the peace that's within. And so I ask you all, may the perception of your divine love by God's blessing to you and all your dear ones this Christmas day. Namaste. And now we're going to do meditation with Carol.
Good morning.
I said that one time at a church, because I know how to say Merry Christmas in Navajo. Merry Kishka. I know I said happy, Merry Tomes. My husband taught me that. Up there? Oh, bring it in? I could bring my mouth in. Okay. Okay, this is a book from Helen Rice. I always like this. It's The Priceless Gift of Christmas. If you like, you may just relax and listen. Now, Christmas is a season for joy and merrymaking, a time for gifts and presents, for giving and for taking. A festive, friendly, happy time when everyone is gay. But have we ever really felt the greatness of the day? For through the centuries the world has wandered far away from the beauty and the meaning of the holy Christmas day. For Christmas is a heavenly gift that only God can give. It's ours just for the asking for as long as we shall live. It can't be bought or bartered. It can't be worn, won or sold. It doesn't cost a penny, and it's worth far more than gold. It isn't bright and gleaming for eager eyes to see. It can't be wrapped in tinsel and placed under a tree. It isn't soft and shimmering for reaching hands to touch, or some expensive luxury you've wanted very much.